Welcome back to another one of our behavior streams. Today, we're tackling one of the most sensitive topics in the field and in life. We're going to be talking about punishment. So, this is actually going to be probably one of my favorite topics because it is so controversial. The problem with punishment is that it's both a technical term in the field, like, oh, we use the term punishment, but it's a very general use terminology that everybody has their own understanding or idea of what punishment is. In everyday life, punishment is associated with very, very bad things, right? You're going to go to jail for a crime that you committed. You're getting spanked or you're getting beaten. You know, there's abuse, there's pain. There's all these kind of negative associations attached to the word punishment. Even though we use the same terminology, punishment, the term itself is very, very different in terms of its definition in the field of ABA versus how people in general use it. In everyday use, a lot of times our intentions, what we want to happen, okay? Like when we want behaviors to go away, we want to get rid of these kind of situations or whatnot. When we want that to happen, it's tied into what we call punishment, okay? Which means that, oh, when I want this behavior to go away, I'm calling it punishment regardless of what actually happens. The thing is that it's so tied into what we want, but there's a disconnect to what actually happens. In applied behavior analysis, only the results make any kind of impact. Only the results tell us whether something is reinforcement or punishment. For us, something is only punishment when the behavior decreases or goes away as a result of what we did. It does not matter what we want to happen. It only matters what's actually happened. Let's say that Eugen doesn't like me saying hi to her, okay? And every time I go up to her and I say, "Hi, Eugen," and she slaps me across the face because she wants me to stop saying hi to her, okay? If I keep on saying hi to her and my behavior doesn't go down and doesn't decrease, it's not a punishment procedure. In fact, because the behavior continued and because I kept on saying hi to Eugen every time, that in fact is a reinforcement procedure, a reinforcement occurrence. This is actually the textbook definition. You know, it's actually one of the ones that I study. It's right here. From that book, the definition is that punishment, in order to be called punishment, has to decrease the future probability of the behavior. In our everyday lives, right, behaviors change all the time. There are only certain directions that behaviors can go. They can go up, they can remain the same, or they can go down or be completely gone. When behaviors go up or they remain in place, okay, like, oh, I'm still doing the same things I was doing, reinforcement is occurring for that behavior. When behaviors go down or they stop completely, then either punishment or extinction has occurred. Anytime that you're talking about how do I get rid of a behavior, okay, any behavior that you're talking about, how do we get rid of it? You're talking about a punishment procedure or an extinction procedure. You're not talking about reinforcement at all. There's a slight difference between punishment and extinction. And the difference is this. Extinction is more like a passive way to get rid of the behaviors. The way that you're getting rid of this behavior is to make sure whatever the reason the behavior exists for, you make sure that the child's behavior doesn't get them what they're looking for. If the child wants your attention, you minimize the attention they get from whatever behavior that they engaged in. If they want an item that they like, you make sure they don't get that item. And if they want to escape from some situation, like, oh, they don't want to listen to your instructions, you make sure that they listen to your instructions. And that's how all those behaviors will go away, is because they don't work. In punishment, what we're doing is we're actively trying to get rid of these behaviors. We're either adding things into the environment or taking things away from the environment, but we're doing something active like that to get rid of the behaviors we don't want to see. In positive punishment, what happens is that we're adding something to the environment that's going to stop that behavior from occurring. So what is it that we're adding then? Well, we could add more work to the child, make the work more effortful, but generally we're adding something to the environment that the child does not enjoy. In negative punishment, we're going to take something away from the environment that's going to stop this behavior. So the child might lose their favorite toy or their favorite activity, like, oh, watching YouTube or having access to a phone or a tablet, or losing any preferred type of snacks or whatnot. But basically, when they engage in that inappropriate behavior, you actively take something away from them that they would otherwise have access to. Reinforcement and punishment have nothing to do with good or bad in ABA. It has nothing to do with intent. It doesn't matter what you want to happen. It only matters with what actually happens. Let's say that a school teacher wants to get rid of a child's ripping up worksheets behavior for math. The thing is that that teacher, her intent is to get rid of that behavior. So let's take a look at what happens on the student side, okay? Listen, I don't want to do the math anyways. I'm not interested in the math work. That's why I ripped up the worksheet in the first place. And so if the teacher is using timeout, like, okay, you're not doing what I want you to do, so I'm going to put you in timeout, okay? If the teacher uses that intervention to try to address the ripping up of the paper, it might not work. For the student, I got away with not doing my work by engaging in this ripping behavior because you send me to timeout, so I don't have to sit in math doing something I don't want to do. That ultimately is going to get the behavior to increase. It doesn't matter what we want to happen. If the behavior increases, the child continues to rip up the paper, that procedure is a reinforcement procedure. However, if for whatever reason, the timeout actually produces the results that you're looking for, which is the behavior goes away, then that's punishment. The most basic thing that most people have to understand is don't keep on doing things that don't work. If what you're doing with your child doesn't work, change it. When we take a look at the research into reinforcement and punishment, the research is absolutely clear. Reinforcement and punishment together, working in tandem, is more effective and will produce the best results. Reinforcement by itself and punishment by itself are not nearly as effective as the combination of the two. If the research is very, very clear about that, the problem is that in the US, we have a lot of providers giving only positive approaches to treatment. They claim not to use any punishment procedures and only use reinforcement procedures. So if it's very clear that, oh, it's the combination that is the most effective, why are these providers all doing that? And it's about marketing. It's about attracting as many clients as you can get because it's a business and I want to get your business. And so how I'm going to get your business is to make you feel good about doing the treatment. The more I feel, oh, you feel good about the treatment, the more likely you're going to come to my business to do that. For us, we're not here to be popular. I don't really care about being the most liked person anywhere. What I'm here to do is to help everyone who wants to know how to be the most effective teacher possible. And that's what I'm here for. Our treatment is not meant to make you feel better. Okay, like that's not the goal of good, effective treatment. Good, effective treatment always has the child's long-term health and development in mind, not your immediate happiness, not the child's immediate happiness. Your child doesn't have the knowledge or ability to make good choices for themselves. If you give them the option of watching YouTube videos all day, they probably will take that option. If they could eat all the candies that are their favorite all day, they probably would. And would they touch the vegetables? Maybe not. As a parent, when you do things to get immediate happiness, okay, a lot of times what happens is you sacrifice long-term happiness and long-term growth and development because you're just worried about today rather than like the child's long-term health. So yes, your child's going to hate eating broccoli today or hate eating vegetables today, but it might be that better for them over their long-term health. There are going to be a lot of times as a parent that you're going to feel like absolute crap because of what you have to have your kids do or take away from your kids, but it's the right thing to do. Here's an example of actually people doing things to make the situation easier or feel better that end up causing much more long-term problems. I've heard about this with certain providers, which is we don't say no to the child. And we stop saying no because the child gets really upset when we tell them no. They do everything in terms of training their staff not to give no's to the kids. The problem is this sensitivity to getting no's doesn't go away in the real world for kids as well as adults. We get no's all the time. So if your child gets used to a world where nobody ever tells them no, because every time somebody tells them no, they have a big fit, guess what's going to happen in the future when they have to go out into the real world and experience real world situations and they get a no at that point? They don't know how to handle it. They don't know how to control themselves. And then is it good for them? For us, not using punishment is actually unethical to the child. If this child needs something to achieve skill sets, to learn, to grow, to be happy, to access their environment, and you knowingly withhold that, that is unethical. So when you go and you take away one aspect, one major part of an intervention, and remember, the most effective interventions is reinforcement and punishment together. If you take one of those away, what happens is the effectiveness of the treatment decreases. What actually tends to happen is that that child's progress is slowed down by virtue of abstaining or not using either reinforcement or punishment when you're dealing with treatment. You'll hear a lot of people very passionately arguing against punishment, okay? But if you actually pay attention to what is being said, everything that's really negative about punishment is about the misuse of punishment. Reinforcement, punishment, they are both tools, okay? Methods of getting the results that we're looking for. And then it just depends on the user, whether they use it for good or for evil. Most often when you talk to other clinicians, you'll hear, oh, I don't use punishment because, oh, I don't like to do that. Okay? Oh, I disagree with that. But it's never based on, oh, you know what? Punishment is not effective. It's never about the effectiveness of the procedure. It's always has to do with their own feelings about stuff. So if you can imagine going to your doctor and you have something that can be cured by a shot, or your symptoms could be greatly alleviated by a shot, and the doctor says, you know what? I just don't like giving people shots. It doesn't feel good, right? That's not a doctor you want to go to. Now, it's completely different if your doctor's like, okay, we have a shot, we have a pill, and then we have this other treatment. These are all the good things about it. These are the bad things about it, and breaks down each one so that you understand, okay, these are all the different avenues, you know, and that's very different from a doctor that abstains from something because they don't like doing it. The other kind of argument is like, oh, you're going to hurt the child's self-esteem, or I'm going to eliminate really like, this is who my child is. And by doing this punishment procedure, I'm going to get rid of the child that I know. Neither of which are true. We're going to talk a little bit more about like, oh, esteem and like, oh, where do you derive esteem? Okay. And so that you guys have a better understanding of it. Before we get into that, I want everyone to understand who your child is different from the behaviors they demonstrate. Okay. Your child is not their behaviors. Okay. Your child's behaviors actually hold them back from being who they can be. Let's now shift gears and talk then about self-esteem. A lot of people think self-esteem comes from people just giving us compliments, giving us platitudes, you know, saying like, oh, you're good at this, you're good at that. Oh, wow, you're fantastic, blah, 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 blah. Okay. People think it derives from that. It does not. Self-esteem comes from accomplishment, being able to do something, knowing you can do it, and having that sense of accomplishment with performing any particular task or accomplishing any kind of feat. So if I'm an artist, okay, and I drew something and I look at him like, oh, this sucks, right? It doesn't matter if 1,000 people come up to me. It doesn't matter if 1,000,000 people come up to me and say, wow, that's a great piece of art, because I won't believe it. I know. You don't know. I'm the artist. This sucks. Okay? Just because people give you platitudes about stuff, people can tell you you're pretty. People can tell you you're this and that and that. It doesn't actually materially impact you if you think otherwise. The difference is if I drew something, I was like, oh man, this is so good. Then you show it to people and they compliment you. Now the compliments add to my self-esteem. The esteem begins at the accomplishment stage and is supported by compliments. The thing is, some people also think that giving criticism, telling somebody, oh, what they could improve on, also destroys self-esteem. Self-esteem is never damaged by honest feedback, okay? Where it gets damaged is through insults and disparagement. Oh, that sucks. All right. Oh, you're not very good. Okay. Those aren't feedback. Okay. Feedback is about identifying the things that are done well and identify the things that could be improved on. If your child does something and they're super excited because they accomplished something and they build some little self-esteem, they come to you and like, hey, look at what I did. And you're like, ugh, that's horrible. What is that? Okay? That will destroy self-esteem. But if you're like, wow, that's great. I really like what you did here, here, and here. Oh, but you see here, I think you could do this a little bit better. That kind of stuff does not harm a child's self-esteem. By and far, punishment does not affect anyone's self-esteem. I can tell you, my parents have told me no a lot of times. My wife tells me no all the time. Okay, it doesn't actually affect my self-esteem. Let's then talk about, well, what does a good implementation of punishment actually look like? One of the most important things is it should be pre-planned, meaning like, okay, I know what my child's liable to do. Okay, when they do this behavior, I know this is how we're going to react to it. This is the consequence we're going to implement. This is what we're going to do when the child does this. You've already thought about it. You already know what you're going to do. And that is one of the most important things, because when you don't pre-plan, doing things in the moment, well, you might be really mad in the moment and you might be angry. So you're like, you're never, ever going to do something. Okay, dude, you're never going to live up to that. You should always do it when you're nice and under control. You should never do it when you're raging mad or you're just not under control. You always want to be very consistent with that. Once you decide you're going to punish something, it should always be consistent. What that means is it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how tired I am. It doesn't matter the circumstances. Once you decided to do it, you should always do it. The expectations and the exact consequences should be very, very clear to the child, meaning like, oh, you know exactly what you did and what the consequence for that behavior is. There should be no misunderstanding, no misinterpretation. It is very clear. This is the punishment for this particular behavior, and you're making it clear to the child. What happens when people don't do punishment right? And a lot of parents do this, okay? It doesn't matter what parent, like, oh, when you're not prepared for stuff, a lot of things you're just doing right in the moment. So let me tell you what happens in the moment, right? Like in the moment, maybe your child's getting you so mad, okay? Or you're in public and the child's getting you so embarrassed. Or maybe you're both mad and embarrassed, okay? And those all emotions are raging inside. In that moment, all the blood rushes out of your brain, goes into your body, your heart rate increases, you have adrenaline pumping through you. All of those things make it hard for you to make good, sound, smart decisions right in the moment. And most likely, you're doing it out of control. Another failure is when people are very inconsistent about applying the punishment. So sometimes they do it, oh, if I feel good enough, I'll do it. Oh, I'm just a little bit tired today, I'm not going to do it today. It's the lack of consistency that hurts. And it hurts when you're not clear with your child. They don't know why they're being punished and the extent of the punishment. They don't understand. And what you want them to do is you want them to make good choices for themselves, because every behavior that they engage in is a choice that they engage in. And so what happens with both reinforcement and punishment is that you're setting the conditions so that they can make good choices for themselves. Oh, in this moment, do I need to behave appropriately or do I need to behave inappropriately? You know what? If I behave appropriately, this is all the good stuff that comes out of it. If I behave inappropriately, these are the consequences that I feel when I do that. And what you want to do is make choices easy for your child. Okay? Make it very clear, this is good, this is not good. The more differentiated and more clear that you make it, the easier of a choice your child has. Good effective treatment always involves a mixture of reinforcement and punishment procedures. The challenge is that different kids, just like different people, require a different mixture of these components. Some kids will be great with a lot of reinforcement and very little punishment. Some kids require a lot more punishment and very little reinforcement because the reinforcement doesn't motivate them enough to make the right choices. Hopefully, this talk has really helped everyone understand that punishment is not bad, okay? There's a lot of negative things out there about punishment, but when you're actually looking at what it is in ABA, and it honestly is misnamed in ABA, we should probably call it something different because it's so tied into popular culture, but it is what it is. But punishment by itself is not bad. It's learning how to use it effectively, and how to use it in combination with reinforcement to produce the best results. My son's hovering around here because he's afraid that I'm going to miss bringing him on the stream. So he wants to say hi first and show you everybody something, and then we'll continue with the question.
안녕하세요.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. Remember, if you like what we do, please hit the like button. You really enjoy these talks, please hit subscribe, tell your friends about us. Let us know what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong, if there's anything else that we can do to improve how we're helping. Thanks everybody for taking time out of your day to join us, and we'll see everybody next time.